Hi, if you're new here, my name is Berkeley. I stopped making art for a long time, and I have been sharing my process and my progress of getting back into making art. And I have been spending a lot of time recently focusing on actively seeking inspiration. I went on a trip to Charleston, South Carolina recently, and by the time that I left, I was feeling so creatively renewed and inspired. And I started thinking about how whenever I go on a trip, I just feel so excited to make art. In this video, I'll be sharing things that I like to do while I'm in a new place to boost my creativity. What I'm sharing can be applied to any trip or any place. It doesn't have to be Charleston. And I think that if you want to be inspired, but you don't have an opportunity to go on a trip right now, you can do a version of these things just wherever you live. It's just about taking time to look at the world around you and try and see things from a different perspective. I think that going somewhere unfamiliar makes it really easy for me to see unique things about a place or weird little quirks. And it makes me wonder and imagine, and then magically I feel inspired. But like I said, you don't have to go on a trip to do these things. These can all be done in your normal life too. So let's get into what got me inspired in Charleston. The first thing that I did that was really inspiring is just going for a wander. Wandering in general is just one of my favorite things to do, whether I'm in a new place or I'm at home. Walking through somewhere and just seeing it is so much fun. And when I walk, I can take my time and I can go slow and I can just take a closer look at the things around me. And I can take little unexpected detours. Plus, there are the added sounds and smells of the world. I really like to look at the buildings that I see and textures and patterns. Charleston is just one of the prettiest cities to walk around in, so this was a very easy way for me to get inspired, but you can do this in your neighborhood or your town. Just pick a different path than normal and see what you find. If you want to go down a different street or maybe stop into a different park than usual, I think that there's so much good stuff hidden in our regular world that we forget to look at because we get so used to taking the path that we normally take, or we don't look up from our regular routine. The important part of this is just taking time and slowing down and really looking around us. And the world can be so beautiful and so interesting and so weird, and it can be really easy to forget to pay attention and notice it. Another way that I've been slowing down to allow myself to be inspired by the world is by drawing from real life outside. This is a new one for me because previously I have felt really nervous to draw in public, but it's something that as I've gotten more used to it and more comfortable with it, I have really come to love it. While we were in Charleston, we walked down to a waterfront park, and there were all of these snowy egrets and other birds up in the trees, and we ended up sitting underneath them. The birds were really loud and really chatty, and they were busy trying to build their nests for the spring. You can hear them like talking and bickering with each other, and they were really funny to me. Just the whole time that we were down there, they were fussing with each other. Something that I like about plein air drawing is that it captures a moment in time almost like a memory for me. So when I'm drawing outside, I sit still, I watch, I listen, and I feel like I can just really slow down and sink into what's going on around me. And it feels a little bit like meditation. It feels a little bit like just becoming part of the scenery, but it is really an incredible feeling of being in and of the world around me. I also like that when I'm working on something outside like this, I feel a lot less pressure to make something perfect. And I feel like my only real job in that moment is to pay attention and to just make something. And at the end, I have a little drawing to remember my moment by. I like doing this in familiar places too. I feel like by going and sitting somewhere for a longer time and really trying to notice the details and observe, I do end up seeing places that I'm familiar with in a totally different light. And so seeing new things in old places, this is a great way to do it. Another way that I like to get inspired is by learning new things. And one of the ways that you can learn something new is by going to a museum of any kind. And while I was in Charleston, I went to the Gibbs Art Museum. I think you can get a really unique sense of a place based on what is featured in their permanent art collection. And I think you can also get a really good sense of what is on a community's mind based on what is featured in their special collections. It's kind of, you've got the history of a place in the permanent collection and what is going on in the current world with the special collection and what the curators and gallerists have chosen. So these were some of my favorite pieces from the permanent collection. I think that they have a wonderful permanent collection and it's very historical, but they also have a bunch of great new artists in there as well. I also learned about an artist that is new to me in their special exhibit. It featured a retrospective on Leo Twiggs, who is a batik artist born in South Carolina, and his work spans 6 decades. He's done a bunch of solo shows, but he's never had a retrospective, and I thought this was a really amazing artist that they featured. I'm not super familiar with the methods of like making a batik painting, but I've seen a lot of batik and I have never seen anything like his. The colors and the patterns were just absolutely beautiful. Of his own work, he says, "Most of my works have deep roots in my experiences growing up in the South, but my intent, as always, is to explore the human condition. It is this exploration, I believe, that makes art endearing and enduring." I really liked the work that they featured of his in the museum, and I thought it was pretty amazing to see art basically covering an entire person's life and watching the things that inspired him and that moved him to make art, especially someone who has been working pretty near to where I live and grew up in a similar area to me. You don't have to go to an art museum in a new town to learn something new. You can, of course, go to a museum in any town, anywhere, but you can also go to events hosted by your public library or lectures or just looking around at what different community organizations are hosting as far as events go. I think there's a lot of ways that we can learn, and it can be in all kinds of disciplines and it can come from all kinds of places. I also love going to art supply stores when I'm on trips, just to browse and see what people are using to make their art. I think it's fun to see what artists in other areas are doing, and a lot of times when you go to an art supply store in a town or a city that's different than yours, you'll notice that there is more of one kind of supply versus another kind of supply just based on what the demands are from the artists in the area. And so I do like to poke around and see what people are making. So I went to an art store that I really like in Charleston. I've been there before and just got a real kick out of walking around and seeing. And just looking at art supplies gives me such a creative boost just from thinking about using supplies and making art. I feel like it always makes me feel excited to go make something after I leave. I've shared in a previous video that I've been working through some complicated feelings about buying new art supplies, but I did get a couple of things that I'm really excited about. I bought a case of wax pastels and I also bought a handful of some markers. As I've been working more in my sketchbook and taking it with me places and drawing outside, I have been really wanting to have some supplies that feel a little bit more immediate. And so I usually like to use ink or watercolor or gouache, and I still love doing those things. But when you're taking your sketchbook on the go, I feel like having all of that wet media is really not an ideal thing for like just throwing it in your bag and taking it and working on it. And so I'd been looking for something that was a little bit easier to just take along with me. And when I saw these wax pastels, I knew that I really wanted to try them, and I've really been enjoying them. So they're just like fancy crayons. They're just fun to use. And the markers, I think that I'm still kind of figuring out, but it's nice to have some stuff that I can just toss in my bag and draw when I feel like it and not have to worry about it drying or layering or whatever. I also get so much inspiration from spending time in cemeteries, and Charleston has a ton of really wonderful, sprawling cemeteries. I like reading the tombstones and I like piecing together family histories, and it just makes me imagine what these people might have been like. I also find cemeteries to be so peaceful and beautiful and quiet, and they're just perfect places for reflecting and for thinking. I really wanted to paint some of the graves that I saw, so I worked on them when I came home from my trip. I sat down and I wanted to do a little bit of a gouache painting based on one of the images of the cemeteries that we went to. I just think there's something really meaningful to be found in a space full of death and decay, but also full of life and new growth. and walking around a big cemetery where the tombstones are so worn down that you can't even read anything on it, and they're everywhere, but there's also flowers and bugs and birds and rabbits. It's just this wonderful mix of life and death, and I cannot help but be inspired by what's going on in a cemetery. The last way that I like to find inspiration while I'm on a trip is by going into nature. I love being in nature, and so I seek it out when I'm at home, I seek it out when I'm on a trip, and especially if you go somewhere new and you get to see a new kind of nature, that's always really inspiring to me. And just getting to see plants and animals just growing and living and doing their thing, I think there's nothing more inspirational than that. We went to a public nature area while we were on our trip, and I saw some really beautiful things. I wanted to try to draw the view, so I sat down and I used my new wax pastels. And I think going on a trip and seeing new nature is always inspiring, of course, but if you just go out into your yard or down your street, there's all kinds of nature all around us that we can look at and enjoy. So while it's great to appreciate nature in unusual or unfamiliar places, I do think that everybody's got a little bit of nature around them, and there's all kinds of beautiful stuff happening in the world near us. So maybe next time that you're feeling a little bit uninspired, go outside and breathe in the air and look at the plants in your yard, or look at the birds in the sky, or look at the leaves in the trees. There's just so much good, beautiful stuff all around us. And if I'm being honest, my drawing really didn't turn out that well, but I'm really happy that I sat down and I recorded the memory, and I had a lot of fun working on it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider liking or subscribing. I really want to build a community of creative folks who are interested in inspiring one another. So if that's you, welcome. And that's all I have for this video, so I'll see you next time. Bye.